What's up, everybody? Today is a very special day. I've got my friend here, Jeff Flamm, and he's going to tell us about his story of how he went from flipping triplexes back in the day to where he is now. I won't tell you where he is now because we'll save that for later, but this is one you're going to definitely want to pay attention to. So let's jump right into it.
All right.
Jeff.
Good to be here.
Great to have you. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in real estate. How long ago was this, and what was your angle?
Well, it was back in 1977. I got married, and we were renting an apartment, and I thought, this is just wasting money, renting. So we need to buy a house. Well, back then, interest rates were at 13% to buy a home. So it was expensive, and it went as high as 17 in the 80s.
Wow.
Unheard of now.
Yeah. Anyway, back in those days, 13 seemed pretty normal, 10 to 13. But anyway, so what I did is we lived in downtown Ogden because my wife taught school, middle school at Washington and Central, junior highs. So we needed to find something close, and I worked right there as a financial planner. So we decided, I found these great old homes. This was 40 years ago, so in the late 70s. You found these great big old homes like you'd find on North Temple in Salt Lake or up in some of them in the avenues. And they were single family homes, but it was zoned for multifamily, the area. So I went and started looking at homes and found I could buy them for about $44,000, these big homes. And with a little bit of work, I could change them and make them duplexes or triplexes.
Yeah.
So I did one a year until I had done 5.
Wow.
And so I think it took 7 years to do 5 of them. But in 1985, I sold them all and took the $392,000 of equity I had created and started.
In addition to the profit you'd made. So
No, this was what the profit I made.
Oh, with the profit. Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I made $392,000 and that of cash I had, and started a benefits outsourcing company with a friend of mine. And we started that in 1985. Tried the model here in in Utah, proved the model, and then went national. So in 1986, we went national with it, managing HMOs, PPOs, all managed healthcare for big companies. Wow. So we went out on our first business trip. We sold Sears, and then we went and sold Holiday Inns, and then Marriott Corporation. We were on our way to meet with Kodak, and we got a call from Xerox. They said, "We understand you manage HMOs for companies. Can you come meet with us?" So we changed our plans and rented a car and drove up to New Haven, Connecticut, and met with Xerox and closed that deal. And then we went up and closed Kodak. So in our first business trip, we closed 5 Fortune 500 companies.
Wow, that's insane.
So we knew we had something. And so over the next 10 years, from 1986 to 1996, we built Health Benefits America, to where it was, we had 1,400 employees here in Utah, and we were managing the benefits for 23 million people.
Unbelievable.
And so all of a sudden, everybody started finding out who we were and trying to buy us. We had like 18 companies approach us about buying us. And when ADP came along, it was the right fit because everything we did came off payroll. We would scan payroll every day for every one of our clients. If there's a new hire, we printed them out a packet. It says, here's open enrollment for you. You have 30 days to make a selection on a health plan, on a dental plan, and so on. And then we'd scan it every day, and when people were terminated, we'd send them COBRA notifications and collect their COBRA money. So ADP came along, and everything we did came off payroll, and they're a payroll company, it made sense.
Yeah. So tell me then, how imperative was that early part of your life in real estate, fixing those triplexes, to launch you into that next phase of your life?
Well, it was everything, because when I tried to borrow money for our company, nobody wanted to lend us money because we were a startup. So banks wouldn't lend us money.
Yeah.
So that's why I sold all of the duplexes and triplexes I had, and we took that money and started the company.
Amazing.
So it paid off multiples, many multiples.
What made you feel that you were willing to take on that risk of selling what was going right? I'm sure the things were making you great rents, you were living off of some of the money. What made you feel like you were willing to sell all of that and just start something completely new that you've never done?
It's a good question. we just could see that managed healthcare was a nightmare for everyone. There's 400 HMOs all calling on Walmart, Kmart, Sears. All of them are getting calls every year from 400 HMOs wanting to be offered, and they don't know anything about them.
Right.
So they have like 45 employees there, and every employee fills out a paper application on what HMO, and it goes in there, and their data keep punching it in at corporate. So they have like 45 people just managing paper. And we were just at the cutting edge when FedEx was only 3 or 4 years old. They came out the year we started with pagers, so we were able to use pagers, and then fax machines came out a year later. So everything kind of was happening, and we were just moving with technology.
Right on the
so it was
cusp.
the right time.
Yeah.
So I tell people, watch technology, what it's bringing down that's going to change the future. Anytime there's new technology that can improve any business, you can marry that technology with any business and improve the margins. So you can go in and start a company against any big company and kick their butt.
There you go.
Because big companies are slow to do anything.
Well, because they're repeating this patterns that they're used to doing, and they're not used to looking for new innovation, the new things that are coming up. And in fact, I was listening just the other day to what are they called? Disruptors, the companies that come in and disrupt, and it's usually not a competitor that they're expecting.
No,
it's usually coming from a completely different.
Somebody
part of the
appears
market.
out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook disrupts Kodak. Right? Like Kodak is thinking the whole time, like their biggest competitor is their film people. But what they don't realize is that it's the digital platform, the social media, where people aren't going to need to print off their photos anymore. They can just upload them digitally onto Facebook. Actually, Facebook was what took down Kodak and not the other competitors.
There's a great book I just finished called Life After Google. And it's pretty technical. Techies will love it, but I was kind of lost in some of it, but it talks about how everything's changing. It talks about cryptocurrency. It talks about all the changes that are going to happen that are going to put a lot of the big Fortune 500 companies out of business in the next 10 years. Because everything's changing so quickly. And so I own a speed reading company is another thing I do, and I teach people to read above 700 words a minute because the average person reads at 200. So when they get to the bottom of the page, they don't even know what they've read because their minds jumped everywhere because they're bored.
That sounds just like me.
And so we get people reading at 700 words a minute, and then they can read a book in 2 hours and stay very focused. If you're not reading a book a week, as an executive, you will get kicked in the butt by your competition. You've got to stay ahead of what's coming and read every latest book that comes out. So I do that. I read 50 books a year and listen to one a week on Audible. So I try to get through 100 books a year. So when I meet with anybody, it doesn't matter about what we're talking about. If we're talking about the future and where things are going, I can hold my own and talk to them about where I think things are going. So I think for everybody, whatever business you're in, read.
Absolutely. Now, what the kind of books that you're recommending here, are they mostly business books?
They're business books.
Okay. And then with this, because I'm a big reader, but most of my reading, I mean, I do mix in business books quite a bit, but most of my reading is more philosophy and psychology. I do the deep dive stuff. And so the only reason I never got into, say, speed reading is because I take more of a analytical approach where I take a long time on maybe one page, right? Now, how well does speed reading work for that kind of reading?
Well, it changes. Instead of sub-vocalizing reading each word as in your mind, you only read as fast as you talk.
Right.
So most people read around 200 words a minute. New Yorkers, maybe 240. Arkansas, maybe 180. I don't know. That's kind of a joke. But it really will reflect what speed you talk at. Because when you read, you say every word in your mind as you read. So to overcome that, you've got to learn to read conceptually instead of subvocally, which is each paragraph's a thought. So as you read, what's this paragraph about? You're an investigative reader. What's this about? What's the author writing? What's the point? So each paragraph you're finding what the point is. New thought, new paragraph. And so you change, so you go very fast, and it's much easier to remember 16 concepts in 2 pages rather than 700 words.
Yeah.
So we've sold over 1 million of these in the last 20 years. So a lot of people have used it, and it changes their lives because they become voracious readers. Like my kids are all great readers, did really good on GMAT. Most of them got in the 700s on GMAT. So they could name their schools. 2 of my boys got their MBAs at Oxford. Now, Oxford's the #1 university in the world. and there's only 400 people that get into the master's program, business program each year worldwide. So there's only about 50 from the U.S. So to be one of the 50 that get in, you have to be really good. And it's all how well you test take. If you're a slow reader, you don't do well on tests. People say, I get test anxiety. What does that mean? It means you're too slow and you start looking at the clock and you get stressed. And you can't even think of what you're reading. So you've got to get so you can read fast and get through the test in half the time, the ones you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Then spend the other half going through the ones you're not sure of and thinking them through logically without stress. And your scores will go up 25% just using our program. So we put it in schools and we'll raise ACT 22 to 25% in every school in 8 weeks.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So this is kind of a little diversion, but it ties into where we're going in the future, because the most important thing for everybody is to read, know what's going on in the future.
Absolutely.
You don't hear enough of it on TV. You have to find that in really good business books on where things are going.
Yeah, I like that you said that too. You don't hear a lot of that on TV because the news is not the same as reading a book.
No.
The news is almost wind, right? Like the thing that happens today, it's going to change tomorrow, it's going to change tomorrow, and they're designed to keep your attention. And so a lot of times you're caught up in all this information, but it's not the information that you actually need to get ahead.
That's right. Yeah, and the best thing is probably not watch the news, because I think it's depressing lately.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The less I watch it, the happier I am.
Yeah,
So let's go back. I'm super curious. So you had $390,000 or so in equity, and let's say 10 years later, how much did you turn that $390,000 into?
Just shy of $100 million.
390 to 100.
And we never went for outside capital because I had that money.
Yeah.
So we were able to split that with our executives that we'd given stock to. So there was probably 6 or 7 of us that walked away as millionaires.
That's amazing. That is, and that's about a 10-year process?
Yeah, it was 10 years.
Okay.
And so then what I did is I took the money and I realized another issue. You find out where there's a problem. When we were growing as a company, we could not find a good business park to grow in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
The best one at the time was Union Park. And but the problem is it's not all owned by the same people. And so if you lease space in one building and grow, you've either got to move to a bigger building or have your people in different locations, and it's very ineffective when people have to leave the building to go to meetings with others.
Yeah.
And so you want to be in the same business park, at least where people can walk. So we could see a huge need for a better business park here in Salt Lake City. So Dave Layton, who had built 3 of our buildings for us at Health Benefits America, he called one day because we'd been talking about the need for a better business park in Salt Lake. And he called and said, I've found 120 acres in South Jordan along the river. Do you want to go in on it with me and we can develop it into a great business park? So we looked at it, we ran through the numbers. It was bigger than I wanted to take on. It was several $100 million project.
Oh, wow.
So we decided to bring in one more partner, and one of my dad's best friends was Bill Child, who owned R.C. Willey, and he had sold to Berkshire Hathaway. So Bill had some money, so I called him and asked if he wanted to do it with us, and he said sure. So we designed and built RiverPark, and what you see there today is exactly what was planned.
That's
And we
awesome.
went out and got exactly who we wanted in that park.
Unbelievable.
So we designed it with 10 restaurants, a hotel, the best health club in the state, a Montessori school for kids, and then we had 14 office buildings planned. And so that's exactly what we built, and a credit union. So we went and recruited Gastronomy, who was the best restaurant in Utah, had the best reviews with Market Street Grill. We got them to come, and we went and found Lifetime Fitness out of state and got them to come to Utah and
Really?
go there.
You were the ones who brought in Lifetimes. That's my gym. That's the gym I go to.
And so
I
you
love
look
that
how
gym.
great that is. And so the only land out there we sold was to like the credit union, to Market Street Grill, and to Lifetime Fitness, and to the Montessori school. Why would we sell the land to them and not the others? Because those were unique businesses that we didn't want to own a building so specialized that if they didn't make it, what are we going to do with a big health club?
That makes sense.
So, or a restaurant that's built in Cape Cod style, Market Street Grill.
Yeah.
Looks totally Cape Cod. Who
Right.
else is going to use that? You're going to have to totally remodel it. So anyway, so we sold those, but the rest of it we retained.
Awesome.
So we have about 1,700,000 square feet of office space in that park and 10 restaurants.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that has obviously...
That's made a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, that's obvious, because I know that area extremely well. I actually when I first started with my property management company, we worked out of one of those office buildings, Key Renter Property Management.
Okay.
And so when I first moved back from LA to Utah, that was where my office was. And the reason we picked that office is because Lifetime Fitness was right across the street.
And enough restaurants. You can walk
Exactly.
to lunch.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's kind of got everything there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's got
And yet, what's interesting, sometimes you have to go by your gut feel or your own experience. I knew we didn't have a good business park in Utah. And so what's the issue? If you grow, you got to move to somebody else's building that's got more space and either have two locations you're driving back and forth to, or you've got to sublease your other space. And when you sublease it, you never get near the rent because the person subletting it doesn't know what the landlord's going to do in a year or two, what their rents are going to be. So it's kind of a crapshoot. So it's got to be a dang good deal for them for 2 or 3 years, or they're not going to want to move in. And so what we did with RiverPark is we would tell people when they came in, we've got all of these things you're not going to find in another park. So we put together, a checklist and said, here's all the things RiverPark has. Go and compare. We have 10 restaurants. We have the best health club in the state. We have the trail along the Jordan River where you can bike and run on your lunch hour.
Yeah.
We have changing rooms with showers and toilets in the back of every bathroom on the main level of every building. So people could go in there through the Dutch doors in the back of the bathroom, and there's a whole nother area with lockers and a shower and a separate toilet where they can go and change and then run the trail and come and shower and be back to work.
Brilliant.
So we had that in every building, and all the buildings were connected with fiber optics and telephone. So if anybody's expanding, we can put them in a building next door or somewhere in the park and have them up and running the next day. Now, what if they outgrow their space? Well, we have a building that will accommodate them. We let them out of their lease and put them in the new space. If the only thing they have to pay is any unamortized TIs, tenant improvements. So if there was special things we did for them up front and that's amortized over the lease, if those haven't been covered, they pay the difference. But that's a lot cheaper than subleasing your space and taking a big hit.
Yeah.
So when you show people that we can accommodate your needs with 1,700,000 square feet will be built in this park. Every year we'll be building a new building, so we'll have room for your growth. And once it's full, there's about 10% turnover a year in any business park. So that will mean 170,000 square feet should open every year. So we will accommodate your growth as you grow. Well, it makes sense instead of being in a one-off building somewhere along the freeway, where if you grow and they've leased it all out, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You've got a floor or 2 floors, and now you got to move. And so anyway, that's why RiverPark's done so well. Now, when I say you've got to go by your gut, we knew that we had enough positives there we could sell it. I'm a sales guy. I can sell that.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
Look at the list. You go compare. You're not going to find another building with all of these things. And so I knew we could sell it. But I did get nervous at groundbreaking on the first building because we had Brandon Fugel, who's the top
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
leasing agent. We had all these leasing agents there that came to the groundbreaking, and they didn't know who I was. They knew who Bill Child was, and they knew who Dave Layton was, but nobody knew who I was. I was kind of a nobody. So I'm standing there with punch and donuts listening to these guys, and they go, these guys are going to lose their shirts. Nobody is going to come off of I-15 where they have signage. They're not going to come down here off the freeway. No one will come. This building will sit empty. And we were building it in 2001 when the tech bubble burst.
Wow.
And so it was going up
Started
during that
sweating
period.
a little bit.
I was a little nervous because these were the experts saying, these guys are going to lose their shirts. So I think you have to know what you've got to sell. It's the same when you're redoing homes. You've got to know why the person should buy it, that you're hitting the things that are going to be attractive to them. So it's the same when you're remodeling. What do people want? What's the most important thing? The kitchen.
Yep.
What's the second? The bathroom.
Yep.
Got to be a nice bathroom. Got to be a big enough area of bedroom with enough storage space. So you got to look at what are the top 5 things. Make sure you've got those top 5 that you can really sell those when they come through the house.
Isn't that interesting how easy that scales, right? So even though we're doing maybe fix and flips now, or whoever is watching, right? Like that same concept, those same principles apply when you take it to the next level and you take it to the next level, right? What is it that someone's going to be wanting to buy this property for, or what are they going to be wanting to rent out lease this area for? And you're absolutely right. The amenities in that area are like close to none around the rest of the county, right?
Yeah.
Like where else are you going to find a river park, in Utah? You're not. It's beautiful.
There's not another one. So we're building the same thing. We're building 8 new buildings right down in Lehi on SR 92. That's the highway that goes up to Alpine from Thanksgiving Point.
Yeah.
And they're just on the right side. We have WeWork as one of our clients, so they're in those new buildings. We've got 2 of them built. We start the third one next month, but we've got planned for 4 along there and then maybe 4 more below. So that'll be another park like it, but instead of us building the restaurants, there's restaurants all around.
Yeah.
So it's picking your area. Why else would that be a prime area? Number one, it's the heart of Silicon Slopes. But the second reason is light rail, when they extend it into Provo, goes right through our park.
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
right there. So you look at what you're going to sell. Why would people want to be there? And on any real estate, it's 2 things, right? They're going to either go by price or location. And, the adage location, location, location is the most key thing with real estate. But you can also be in a little more rundown or less desirable areas if you're priced right. So you've got to either have price or location. And if you have both, then you're great.
You're sitting pretty.
Well, yeah. So you've been successful in a lot of different sectors. What would be your biggest piece of advice for someone looking to, okay, now I'm a small wholesaler, I fix and flip, to getting to that next level?
Well, I think you look at opportunities and you say, where can I make money? Maybe like my son built Candlelight Homes with his 2 buddies. They started that when the downturn in 2009. And my son was my COO of Infinite Mind, our speed reading company. We're out hunting, elk hunting, and he said, can I talk to you as my dad and then as my boss? I go, what's up? And he said, do you follow your heart when something's on your mind all the time and you just can't let it go? You just want to do it. Do you follow your heart? And I said, absolutely. What is it you want to do? And he said, well, a couple buddies and I want to start a land development company, but I don't want to leave you high and dry. So what I told my buddies we could do is I would give you half the time for 6 months and them half the time and then go full time with them. And I said, what are you thinking of doing? And he said, well, we've been meeting with the bankers doing the loans on the buildings. He was in charge of that. Is getting the loans done. And every time he'd go with bankers, because we were building Koloa Landing at the time in Hawaii, the biggest resort in Kauai. And
I want to talk about that too.
We were building that at the time, and as those were going vertical, the bottom dropped out in 2008.
Yeah.
So we have these luxury condominiums for sale, and we had 36 of them under contract and only like a dozen closed. The rest got walked away from their earnest money. So we were really nervous about that. And so Brian, my son, was trying to get us the long-term loan on that. And every time he met with the bankers, they go, we're taking back condos all over the country in Las Vegas and in Florida. We've got so many condos we're taking back that we don't want to invest in condos. We don't want to loan on them. And they said, in fact, all we're doing is just taking back land from developers and builders all over the country, and we're dumping that land for 20 cents on the dollar. Now, what happened when my son heard that? Light went on. 20 cents on the dollar. Lots that were $100,000 you can pick up. They're ready to build on for 20 grand.
Perfect opportunity.
So I said to my son, well, how are you guys going to make money? He said, we're going to go out and find investors. We're going to go buy as many lots as we can for 20 cents on the dollar. And all of our investors are told it's got to be patient money, that they've got to leave it in at least 5 years. They can't invest if they're not willing to keep it there for 5 years. We think in 5 years, the economy will come back.
Yeah.
And we'll 5 times our money on it and split it with the investors. So do you know what? They raised $75 million and bought 26,000 lots.
Wow.
So at Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain, they have 20,000 entitled lots. They're not developed yet, but they're entitled. And everything's happening out there. Facebook, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so these guys, if you look at what they've done, and so then what was the next thing they did? They looked at opportunity. Well, we've got these subdivisions we've taken back and bought from the bank, that they've had to take back. And a lot of them are just subdivided lots, but there's no homes on them. So they decided we've got to build a really nice spec home to start it, to fuel it.
Yeah, build the attraction.
So they built kind of like out at Daybreak. Each home's a little different. Because back in those days, if you remember, Ivory had a lot of homes, but they're all stucco.
Cookie
You could
cutter.
choose 4 colors of stucco. They all kind of look the same. And then, Daybreak came along and made cute houses with hardy board and white trim, and they're refreshing, and they're cute, and they're fun, and you walk in them, and they're just, you want to live there.
Yeah.
So Joe Salisbury, one of the partners, he's really creative. So he started designing with the homes and getting them decorated. And every model they built, when people walked in, they wanted the model. Said, okay, you go get qualified, get the loan on it, and in 3 months you can take possession of it. We'll build another model next door. So that's how they started Candlelight Homes.
Awesome.
And Candlelight was started separate from the other partner, from the investors. So these three own Candlelight 100%.
Right.
But they own 50% of DAI, Development Associates. And so those guys, last 2 years ago, I told them a book I'd read. I said, you guys need to read this book. It's called The Accidental Superpower by Peter Zeihan. And he talks about where the world's going. He's an economist. And he talks about all the countries, who's going to go under financially, which countries are going to make it. It's all by demographics. Who has growing population? If they don't, they're stagnant. China has a decreasing population. So does Japan. Their economies suck. You build a new building, one sits empty. You build a new house, one's empty. Nobody to buy it. So he's written this book, and he talks about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. When I read the book, it was like an eye-opener to me, knowing what to do and where to be. So I had my son and his partners all read it, and 2 months later they sold Candlelight Homes.
Interesting.
Because they could see right now is the top right now of selling homes. But when you read the book, you realize millennials aren't going to be living in homes. Most of them are going to be in apartments or condos. They don't want home ownership. They want to travel. They want experiences. So you look at the trends, but if you're not reading and observing that, you think it's the way it is the way it will always be. It's not true. They sold Candlelight and did really, really well. Had a 2-year non-exclusive. They couldn't build, but they retained the name Candlelight. And now 2 years is up this month, so they can go back building homes. So what did they do the last 2 years? They built condos and townhouses and storage units. Found out you can make a lot of money on storage units. So again, look at where money can be made, watch for a piece of property, and say, what is the best use of this property?
Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic. You know, what's funny is when I first met you, I didn't know a lot about the... well, your fix and flips at the beginning with your triplexes. I didn't know about your HMO, the business with all that. All I heard was, in fact, this is exactly what someone told me. Said, you know, that's Jeff Flamm. He owns a resort in Hawaii. That was that was my introduction to you.
Which is losing $29,000 a day right now.
Isn't that funny? Wow. Isn't that funny how like that's the thing that precedes you? The one that you know that, but it's the big item, right? It's the big piece, the flashy piece. And that happens, I think, a lot with people that get their attention on the big flashy piece, but they don't realize where the foundation is. What's really happening underneath the surface, and they can just get caught up on that, you know, that piece. But so you're a partner with, are you still a partner?
Bill Child and Dave Layton, the three of us are the main partners. There's a few other investors, but three are. And
it's still struggling out there?
It's done really well until March. We're full. We're running at 90%.
Until COVID
and hit? The top-rated resort on Kauai.
Wow.
With 4.7 stars,
wow.
Which is kind of unheard of. We're right up where the Hyatt is, so we run nip and tuck with the Hyatt, which is really a high-end hotel.
Yeah.
But everything else is closed on the island. We're not closed, but Hyatt is, Sheraton, they're all closed.
Wow. What do you see the future of vacation?
Again, I read.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? I'm concerned. So I read how many people took cruises. And the latest numbers come from 2017 that 28 million people took cruises in 2017. 28 million people took a cruise, right? And over half of those were U.S. citizens. 35% of all cruises go to the Caribbean. Okay, how many of you want to get on a cruise ship right now?
None.
Hardly anybody's going to go on cruise ships, especially older. And who's most of the clientele on cruise ships? Either young people that go on Carnival or want to have fun, or on the expensive ships, it's older couples or older individuals. They don't want to get on a ship right now. So those ships are all sitting parked, docked somewhere.
Yeah.
And some of those companies have already talked about going into bankruptcy. But I looked at that and I talked to my partners. I called Bill and said, Bill, do you realize that there's like over 15 million Americans have taken cruises just in 1 year? Now, they're not going to get on cruise ships, but they love to travel. Where are they going to go? With COVID in every country, do you want to go to Mexico where you can't even eat the strawberries or drink drinks with ice because you may get parasites?
Yeah.
Do you want to go there? Or do you want to go somewhere where they've had a very, very low incidence of COVID, which is Hawaii? I said, I think once it's opened up and they don't have a quarantine, which they do in Hawaii right now, it's 14-day quarantine. If you go over, you have to stay in your room. But once that's lifted, I think we'll be busier than ever.
Yeah.
Than we ever have.
Because it's safer.
Yeah, so I think these for a year or two, cruises are going to have a hard time coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so I think we're going to have lots of people come, and when they come to our resort, when you go to our resort, 25% of the people there have been there before. It's one of the highest return resorts
100%.
because it's got 5 acres of swimming pools. It's incredible. It's got 3 swimming pools, and the one is incredible. Water slide, splash pad. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
So people come there, and they're in a condo with a kitchen, and you can come and eat your meals, rather than if you go to the Hyatt, which is a nice hotel, you're sitting on the bed with your kids eating Cheerios in styrofoam bowls because you can't afford to take the kids to the restaurant every meal.
Yeah.
Because it'd break the bank, right? So you're eating in your room. You're trying to gather your family where their kids are in different rooms. You don't know what they're up to at night. You want to be in some place with a condo where you're all together. You can fix your meals. You go to Costco, buy all your yogurts and things you want, sandwiches, and live about the same price as home. Not too much different. So that's why our resort, it's got all the amenities. It's huge. It's got putting green, 9-hole putting green. It's got volleyball. It's got soccer field. It's got basketball. It's got a fitness gym and 3 big swimming pools.
Amazing.
So it's kind of everything, and it's a 5-minute walk to the beach. So we'll do fine. But again, why do I feel comfortable with it? I look at the future. Where are things going?
Yeah.
People are not going to quit traveling. Everybody, in fact, is anxious to go on a trip.
Oh yeah,
Right now.
for sure.
Everybody's anxious to go on a trip. And so once it's opened up, we'll be booked, I think, all the way out.
I might be.
I know, I was just gonna say, I think I'm gonna go book.
To get out of here. So.
Yeah, call me because they give 35% off discount if you use the right code if you're from Utah.
Perfect.
Right.
Good deal.
I like it.
We'll let our listeners know.
Okay.
So obviously you've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. I love this. Where are you spending most of your time right now?
I'm spending about half of it right now on Infinite Mind. Our product's called eyeQ, EYEQ, because it's eye training. The speed reading company, we're making it as a native app that's free. So everybody can do all the basic sessions free because I want it out to the masses. Everybody needs to read better. Our kids aren't reading. They don't read books. They watch TikTok. I have 22 grandkids. I watch what they do.
Yeah.
They're not reading books.
Yeah.
They're on TikTok or on Instagram or something else. And so we've got to get everybody reading better. So I'm making it free for everyone. And then those that want the advanced version can buy the premium. Awesome. So that's what I spend half my time on right now.
Sure.
The other half I'm spending on developments we're doing. I've got a number of 3 or 4 big developments going on. Getting ready to build 2 big sets of apartments, 350 units each.
Here in Utah?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on. Again, why would I go into apartments? That's where people are going to be in the future.
You're looking at the trends, where millennials are.
I'm looking at trends.
Yeah.
Look at trends and then look at capacity and look at occupancy and look at risk. And the thing about apartments that's a lot less risk than office buildings, say with COVID, a lot of people have been working from home, and so companies decide we don't need to lease office space. We figured out how to make it work with Zoom calls and everybody working from home. So in the future, we may have a lot of empty office buildings, which when they're empty and there's not everybody's leaving that model, you got a lot of empty buildings.
Yeah.
But in apartments, if it ever softens, you put a big banner up on the side of your apartments and say first month free with a 12-month lease. You're filled. Or you drop the price a little bit, but you never have the kind of hits you'll have in office space.
Yeah.
So I think apartments is where I want to move in the future because I see that as a safer bet for me.
That's
I like
fantastic.
it. That's good information.
Yeah. Well, I know you're short on time, and so are we. Is there any last bit of advice, anything that you would like people to know, something that you can share with
I'd
them?
reiterate, read.
I like it. Yeah.
If you're not a good reader, go onto our website. It's $65 for a year. License.
What's the website?
It's infinitemind.io. Infinitemind.io. But you go there, get your kids on it. I had incentives for my kids to do it, paid them $2 allowance every time they did it, 7 minutes a day. So 5 out of 6 of my kids did it and did really, really well on their tests.
Awesome.
So the last one later came to work for our company, had to do it for 2 years, and so he became really good too. But anyway, it is the life changer for your kids and for you becoming a rock star, because readers are leaders. It's just, that's how it is. Readers are leaders.
Absolutely.
I like it. Good advice.
I love it. Yeah, Jeff. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks again for coming in today and being on the show, and we'll have you back again.
Yeah,
so you're just a
thanks.
wealth of knowledge.
Read.
Read.
Go.
Thanks.
Yeah.